How often do you clean out your fridge? Well, we've been gone for a while. I just got back from England. We went some shopping, and so I have some food in here that is getting pretty old, and I need to make room for the new food. So, cleaning out a fridge is just one of those experiences that everyone has to do, and we often dread it. So no doubt we're going to find some food in here that looks like a biological experiment that went wrong. So we're going to take all this food out. We're going to see what's good, what's bad, and we're going to see if we can maybe save some money by freeze drying some of this food, because isn't that the whole purpose of having a freeze dryer, is to save food so it doesn't go to waste. So we're going to empty the refrigerator, clean it out, sort through the food, see what we can save, and go on from there. So come join me in this wonderful experience. This is pretty much the bulk of my refrigerator. Now, there's some foods in here that are getting kind of old, some foods that look like they're ready to go in the garbage, but we have some new foods intermixed in here also. So the first question is, what can be freeze-dried, what can be saved, what needs to go in the trash? Now, for example, I have all this stuff right here. Now this is a bag of salad, a bag of lettuce and tomatoes and onions. These are all the fixings for hamburgers. And in fact, right here are the hamburgers. I have I have 9 hamburger patties in here. About a week ago, we had a big family party. It was a birthday party. One of my granddaughters turned 16, had hamburgers and hot dogs. Well, the hot dogs are gone, but I have all these hamburgers. Last week, I've probably eaten 5 or 6 hamburgers. I'm tired of eating hamburgers. So the hamburger patties and the salad stuff kind of goes hand in hand, but lettuce, tomatoes, onions, well, the onions freeze okay. Tomatoes and lettuce do not freeze very well. And you can see that to kind of get that rust color on here. So this is probably going to be destined not so much to the garbage, but probably to my chickens. But these are 1/4 pound patties, and I do not want to throw these away. So the hamburger patties, we're going to freeze dry. These will freeze dry really well, and they come back really well. Okay, here's another thing. Okay, this is cheddar cheese sauce. We had nachos and cheese, and the cheddar cheese sauce, this will freeze dry really well. And somewhere back in here, if I can find it, right here. So with the cheddar cheese sauce, we also had jalapenos. We chopped these up and we put them in the sauce. Nachos without jalapenos is like a day without sunshine. But in the jalapenos, we only probably used maybe 5 or 6 slices of jalapenos for all of our cheddar cheese. So I have like this entire bottle now of jalapenos, and the likelihood of me using these in the next several weeks is probably nil. And I don't want these to go bad, so we're going to freeze dry the jalapeno peppers. I think these are going to freeze dry really well too. Let's see what else we have. We have milk, but the milk, this is good up until July 9th, so the milk is okay. I do freeze dry a lot of milk, not a problem with the milk. And then I have my eggs, and we get about 7 to 9 eggs a day, and so we go through a lot of eggs. These eggs are still quite fresh. However, I have this right here, and this right here, and this right here. These are all eggs that I just used in a recent video about experimenting with how much salt should be put with eggs. So now that my video is done, I can take all these eggs and freeze dry them and save these. So all the eggs are going to get freeze dried. Here's another item right here. My wife loves cooking. She likes baking. And the thing she does really well is she bakes cakes. And she's an official Wilton instructor. Well, one of the things she does in her cake batter, she puts this caramel, it's Spanish, I'm not sure. Anyway, it's like some kind of a caramel coffee creamer or something that she puts this in with the cake batter to give the cake a little bit more flavor. Well, this is kind of like the jalapenos. She doesn't bake that often, and this is like a dairy product, and I'm afraid it's going to go bad. So why not freeze dry this? Turn it into a powder, then she can still add it into her cake batter whenever she needs to. So this is going to be a good candidate. Okay, then we have lots of dressings for salads and stuff. We do have a lot of salads. The nice thing about salad dressing, this thing is going to, salad dressing, they're going to be around with the time of cockroaches. These things don't go bad that often. So the salad dressing, that's going to be around here for a while. No need to freeze dry that. Now here's an interesting thing. Going back to like the jalapeno, maraschino cherries. They're packed in a lot of corn syrup, and I'm sure there's some preservatives in here, but I also need room in my refrigerator. So, well, we're going to freeze dry the maraschino cherries, and this will be really interesting to see how this comes out. These maraschino cherries have probably been in my fridge for about a month or so, because how often do we only use them if we're going to cook a ham or have an ice cream sundae. So we're going to freeze the maraschino cherries and rehydrate them and see how they come out. And then we have this, and this just drives me absolutely nuts. Let's move this out of the way. Here's another egg. Oh, got some baked beans from our party. These will freeze dry okay. Oh, take a look at these. T-bone, see, these are T-bone steaks. This is for our July 4th dinner. And they're like 1 inch thick. Not to boast or not to brag, but I'm looking forward to the next couple of days. Okay, here's something that drives me absolutely nuts. Sour cream. So here's 1 sour cream, 2 sour cream, 3 sour cream, 4 sour cream, 5 sour cream, 6 sour cream. How much sour cream do we really need in a refrigerator? Now, we do have baked potatoes a lot, but come on. I mean, really? Do we really need this much sour cream? And I wonder if any of this has even gone bad. Okay, so this is still fresh. And, oh, that's interesting. Well, okay, I know what this is. This is not really sour cream. This is French onion dip that we had with some potato chips, and it's still good. So, but see, this is one of my problems that I have with my wife. So we made the French onion dip, but she left it in the sour cream container. So I'm thinking this is sour cream when it really isn't. It needs to be put in a different container. But I have all the sour cream, and it hasn't been opened yet. Oh, this has been opened. And the expiration date on here is used by July 12th. Well, July 12th, that's about 11 days away. So we're going to take a lot of this sour cream. We're going to hold one back. And so a lot of this sour cream is going to get freeze dried. What else we have? We have lots of butter. Can't be freeze dried. Pickle relish. That can be freeze dried. Got jam, that cannot be freeze dried. Hershey's chocolate syrup. It can be freeze dried. You have to dilute it with water, but I'm not going to worry about it. It sticks around for a long time. It has lots of sugar in it. Mayonnaise. Yeah, this is the only thing that I have lost to, is trying to freeze dry mayonnaise. Can't do it, but you can make mayonnaise out of the things you do freeze dry. And then we have whipped cream, and here's another thing we can do, pickles. Now, pickles will stay in the fridge for quite some time. If we want to freeze dry them, we probably can. They just don't come back as good as fresh pickles. So I think we have some good candidates to freeze dry. I think these are mangoes. We can slice and freeze dry the mangoes. So We're going to get the trays ready, and we're going to see how much of this food we can freeze dry. This will make some extra room in my refrigerator so we can put new food in there, and I won't end up throwing a bunch of money down the drain because the food went bad. This is all the food I pulled out of the refrigerator to make room for other foods, or foods that are getting close to expire, or foods I wasn't going to eat for quite some time. So I have 5 sour creams here. I have about the equivalent of 18 eggs here, maraschino cherries, sauerkraut, nacho dip, baked beans. I found more hamburger patties. I have 13 hamburger patties. I have the sliced jalapenos. I have pickle relish. I have the coffee cream, the caramel delight coffee creamer, and I also found this, which was, I'm glad I did because this is delicious. This is marshmallow cream cheese dip that you dip strawberries into. That is something I really wanted to make sure it's going to be around. We don't have any strawberries, but we're going to freeze dry this guy too. So altogether, this adds up to a lot of money. And I'm going to calculate that up to see how much money we're going to save from not throwing this stuff away. Now, I did throw away the lettuce, but I can live with that. I just pulled all this food out of the freeze dryer. These are the foods I pulled out of my refrigerator when I was cleaning my refrigerator that had expired dates or coming soon, or foods I wouldn't eat in time. So we have the baked beans, we have the nacho cheese, I believe this is a relish, this is a marshmallow cream, this is the onion dip, we got the maraschino cherries here, the jalapeno nachos, we got the hamburger patties. I'm trying to remember what this is. Sauerkraut. So by freeze drying all this food, I saved $53.85 by not throwing this food away. Now, for example, these hamburger patties, they do have a certain amount of oil and fat in them. Well, I'm not trying to save these for 20 years, but I can easily get 3 or 4 years out of these hamburger patties, and I'll probably use them up within the year. Maraschino cherries, I use very little of, but I can still save these. Now, one thing that was interesting was this marshmallow cream cheese dip. This was a dip that you could dip strawberries into, and it tasted wonderful. But I should have thought about it when it was said marshmallow, because halfway through the freeze dryer cycle, I had to pull this tray out because of the concentrated sugars in the marshmallow started to foam up. And so I ended up having to pull this stuff off. It basically foamed up so much, it actually covered my onion, French onion potato chip dip. And that's what this stuff is right here. So I did lose a little bit of the marshmallow dip from that. But other than that, everything turned out pretty good. Now, with the baked beans have a tendency to be very hard because of the amount of brown sugar and molasses in these. The baked beans can make some really sharp corners, and so I might have to double bag this when I put it into my Mylar bags, because some of these edges will be so sharp they can actually pierce the bag. Now, if you're taking a look at this, you'll see these little round things. These are rolled up paper towels, and when I'm putting numerous foods into one tray, I'll put paper towels here. And as you can, maybe you can see on here, you can see a little bit of pink or red from the maraschino cherries. These are like little dams I put down so that if the maraschino cherries happen to start bleeding, it won't bleed into my other food. So I just put these little separation pieces down just to protect the food on the other side. So all this is going to be bagged up. Now, most of this food is not going to go into a Mylar bag. They're going to go into Ziploc bags. Now, Mylar is great for really long-term food storage, but I'm not expecting this to be long-term. I expect to eat this food in the next 6 to 12 months. And because it's in a short duration, I'm just going to put this in to a Ziploc bag. I'm not going to put an oxygen absorber with it. And that food will stay just fine up to about 6 months or so. And along the way, if it happens to start attracting some moisture, I can just throw it in the freeze dryer again and just put it on extra dry and zap that moisture out of the food. So all this will be part of my freeze dry pantry. I have a collection of food in my pantry that I use either daily or weekly, and there's really no reason to use an oxygen absorber and a Mylar bag for the short term. So I'm going to bag this up. We're going to hold back some samples and reconstitute it. Here are my selected samples. Right here, this is my nacho cheese, and I actually threw in a couple of jalapenos with it that we're going to reconstitute that. These are my baked beans, which are extremely hard. I have already in some water a piece of my hamburger. Now, when rehydrating hamburger, or rehydrating any meat for that matter, remember you have like a 2-hour safety window. After 2 hours, it needs to go back into the fridge to keep cool. So a lot of times I'll rehydrate meats overnight in the fridge. This is my marshmallow cream cheese dip right here. I have my maraschino cherries here that are rehydrating, and these are like rock hard. And then right here I have my French onion potato chip dip. And I have hot water. Now, things that have mass, like the hamburger and the cherries, you can pretty much just flood them with water to rehydrate them. But things that are soft, like the nacho cheese, the baked beans, the dip, and the marshmallow cream, you want to go a little bit slow at a time, because if you put too much water in it, you'll end up with soup. So we'll just do a little bit at a time and see how this comes out. Because some of these foods will absorb the water a lot faster. Now, here's a good example. This is supposed to be more of a cream texture. Now I have soup. But because I still have some left over, so let's see, so this is my marshmallow dip that's going to go in my pantry. If you hold some back, you can just take some more of this and add to it to compensate for all that moisture, all the water I just put in there. See, that's a little bit better. Still a little bit moist, but we're going to set that aside and let that get soaked up. This is my chip dip. And, you know, dip is quite a heavy, thick material. Oh, this is coming along just fine. So that's probably just plenty of water for that. My baked beans, let's see, let's go to the nacho cheese. This is still quite hard. We'll have to give that some extra time here. The baked beans, oh, these are softer than I thought they would be. So we're just going to kind of add just a little bit more to the baked beans. Just a little bit. Okay, so we're going to let all these sit for a while and come back to them. The hydration on these are coming along really good. The cherries and the hamburger is going to take a long time to rehydrate. It could be overnight. Now, the potato chip dip is done, and my marshmallow cream cheese dip is done. The nacho cheese is basically done, and the baked beans are basically done. Now, one of the things you can also do to help speed up the reconstitution, plus to help force the moisture into the food. And we're going to do it with the baked beans. We're going to take some plastic wrap and cover these baked beans. Make it nice and tight. We have the nacho cheese covered. We're going to throw these in the microwave for 30 seconds or so and heat these up to where they kind of steam. And the plastic wrap will hold that steam in and kind of help force the hot steam into some of the foods that may still have some dry pieces. Plus, these are some foods you want to eat hot, where you wouldn't want the dips here. Those need to be cool or room temperature. So into the microwave these go. Okay, my nachos are very, very hot. And so are my baked beans. So, in most cases, we're ready to do a taste test. I'm going to give this one last stir on my nachos, and I just happen to have some tortilla chips here. And we'll get a nice piece here with a jalapeno, like so, and here goes the test. Just a little bit on the warm side, not from the temperature, but from the jalapeno. And now we have the baked beans. The beans are tender. The bacon comes through really good. The onions. That is really excellent. Now we have the chip dip. I have some potato chips right here. This is French onion. So we'll try this out. And remember, no double dipping. This is really good. So much for my appetite tonight. Now the last thing we're going to sample is going to be the marshmallow cream cheese dip. And of course we have to have a strawberry to do this with. That is yummy. So there you have it. Now the maraschino cherries, these are still hard. These will take a while to rehydrate. These will go back in the fridge until I'm done. And the meat can take up to, several hours, sometimes overnight, to get this soft enough. Once the hamburger patties are rehydrated, you can put them on a grill. Now remember, they're already cooked, so you just have to heat them up, put cheese on them, throw them into a bun, and you'll be just great. So these foods are going to go into my pantry where I can draw from them in the next few months or so. These are the overnight samples I had, and I call them the overnight samples because it took overnight to get these rehydrated. These are samples of the hamburger patty that I had in the fridge. And these are the maraschino cherries that I had in the fridge. And the maraschino cherries took overnight to rehydrate because these are so hard and tight and dry with the skin. It was just hard for the moisture to get inside of the cherry to rehydrate it. But now these are nice and plump, and they're still sweet, and they're good to eat. So these could be used for a glazed ham or for ice cream. And with the hamburger, basically, since this meat is already cooked, you just have to heat it up, throw some cheese on it, throw it in a bun, and you have a cheeseburger. So these two samples were successful in saving from the refrigerator and freeze drying them for future use. And we can't forget our eggs and our sour cream that we also took out of the refrigerator. Now some of these eggs that I used on a past experiment, these have actually been freeze-dried twice. And these eggs also have, had different levels of salt. I did an experiment of having 1 teaspoon, 3/4, half, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt per cup of egg. And so these have all been mixed together. So the average on these eggs is probably going to be about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. But that's a whole nother issue. So I have a lot of the eggs and I have all the sour cream that will also be bagged up. Now these will not go into my pantry, but these will go into my long-term food storage. So the one thing we have left to do is the coffee creamer. Last item I have out of my refrigerator is this bottle of Delight. It's a caramel-based coffee creamer that my wife uses in baking cakes, and it's about half full. Originally this had 32 fluid ounces, 1 quart. And one of the issues about this on the ingredient list is the second ingredient is sugar. It's actually not corn syrup, it's actually sugar. So freeze drying things that are high in sugar can be a little bit difficult, because what ends up happening when the item is frozen and starts to warm up in the freeze dryer, the vacuum has a tendency to crystallize and pull the sugar crystals as they grow. And high sugar, high corn syrup items have a tendency to kind of like explode, so to speak. And so we need to control the expansion of sugar crystals in the freeze dryer. So we're going to do a little bit of a demonstration. We're going to take this and we're going to split the contents between 2 trays. And I believe there's about 2 cups of this left. And so what we're going to do, we're going to divide this creamer into about so. So we're going to put this in this tray, and we're going to take this creamer and we're going to add half again the amount of water. Now you don't need to worry about adding water to things that are going to be freeze dried, because the freeze dryer is going to take the water out anyway. So this is going to be straight creamer in this tray. This tray is going to have half creamer and half water. Now I'm not going to pour these in the tray now, because it's just going to slosh around as I take it back to the freezer. All the food I freeze dry, I always pre-freeze. So we'll put this tray in the freezer. I'll pour this into it. I'll put this tray in the freezer and pour this into it. Now the Harvest Right trays will easily take 4 cups or 1 quart of fluid. That's not a problem. And then we'll pre-freeze this and then put it in the freeze dryer. And then when it's over, we'll pull this out and we'll compare it. And we'll see quite a bit of crystal growth in this tray. But on this tray, you'll see that the crystal growth is going to be well controlled. This is the last item from cleaning out my refrigerator. This is that caramel coffee creamer. So this side right here was straight coffee creamer. This side is the one that we diluted with water. If you take a look at this, you can just see massive bubbles. You could give us profile. You can see how much this has bubbled up and crystallized, because the coffee creamer was at full strength, and when the sugar started to crystallize, it had nowhere to go but up. Now with this one, where we diluted it, you can see that there's hardly any crystallization, because as the sugar crystals started to crystallize, because it was in a diluted form, they could just go, wherever they wanted to go. And so they didn't bubble up. You can actually see where this was a big massive bubble right here that actually hit the top of the shelf in my freeze dryer. So what we're going to do, we're going to powder these up, and we're going to see what we come up with, because we should have the exact same amount as it was in liquid form. Both coffee creamers were removed and powdered up. So this right here was a coffee creamer that's put in at full strength, and this was a coffee creamer that was cut with water. We end up with having the exact same amount. And so when my wife now needs to bake a cake, she can either add this caramel coffee creamer directly into the cake mix, or she can reconstitute it back into a liquid form and add it that way. But in this method of being powdered, this coffee creamer can now last for months, if not years, and she doesn't have to worry about having it go bad. Now, the only drawback to having liquids that are sweet is these powders will now become hygroscopic, which means that these are going to be very sensitive to moisture and will attract moisture like a sponge. And so if you're going to do this, you need to be able to package these up fairly quickly, because even the moisture in the air will be drawn to these powders that have a high content of sugar or sugar products. But this is just one of the ways that you can rescue food from your refrigerator before it goes bad. My project on cleaning out the refrigerator is done. All these foods right here are going to go in my freeze-dry pantry. These are foods I'm going to be using in the next 6 to 12 months. They do not have oxygen absorbers. They're just in Ziploc bags, and that is just fine. So I have my maraschino cherries, my peppers, my relish, my dip, my coffee creamer, sauerkraut, baked beans, my nacho cheese was rehydrated last night when we watched a movie. And then I have my sour cream, which is in Mylar, and my hamburger patties, and my eggs. These three are going to go into my long-term food storage. So altogether, I calculated I saved $53.85. So I hope this gives you an idea that when it comes time to clean out your refrigerator, if you have foods that are nearing their expiration date, rather than throwing them out, freeze dry them. Isn't that the reason we got the freeze dryers in the first place? It will save you money, and that in turn will basically pay off your freeze dryer. It's a good investment. I hope you learned something. Thank you for your time. Please subscribe. Remember, go forth and freeze dry the world, and I'll send you another video soon.